The great hall of the Galactic Council hummed with the soft murmurs of a dozen different species. Light filtered through the massive dome ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. At the center of it all stood Trom, his blue-gray skin glistening under the lights as he addressed the council. "Esteemed members," Trom said, his voice amplified by the chamber's perfect acoustics. "Today I present my latest research on the human myths." A ripple of amusement passed through the audience. The humans were a favorite topic of entertainment, a supposedly fearsome species that, according to ancient texts, could survive in almost any environment, and possessed an unmatched drive for both creation and destruction. Council Leader Dex, a tall, thin being with 4 arms and eyes that glowed amber, leaned forward. "Professor Trom, while we appreciate your dedication to historical curiosities, this council has real concerns to address. The border outposts report unusual signal patterns." "With respect, Leader," Trom replied, "these myths appear across too many cultures to be mere stories. The texts describe beings who could adapt to any hardship, who built mighty machines." "Oh, who braved poison and drank acid," interrupted Delegate Murr, a bulky representative from the mineral-based Krith species. "Who could regrow lost limbs and survive in the vacuum of space without protection." "Clearly exaggerations, Professor." Laughter echoed through the chamber, but Trom remained serious. He tapped his data pad, and holographic images appeared above the central platform. Ancient drawings of bipedal creatures wielding tools, building structures, and riding primitive vehicles. "The stories vary," Trom admitted, "but the core details remain consistent across thousands of years and dozens of cultures. A species called humans existed on a blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. They were not the strongest, fastest, or most intelligent beings, but they possessed remarkable adaptability and determination. And they vanished," Leader Dex said flatly. "If they ever existed at all." Trom nodded. "The records suggest they disappeared nearly 500 galactic cycles ago. Some texts claim they destroyed themselves in war. Others suggest natural disaster. The most interesting accounts describe them fleeing to the stars after some great calamity." "Fascinating as always, Professor," Leader Dex said, making no attempt to hide his boredom. "But we must move on to actual matters of importance. The unusual signals." The chamber doors burst open, and a messenger rushed in, breaking all protocol. The small green-skinned Vis was breathing hard, their eyes wide with alarm. "Emergency transmission from Outpost 7. They gasped, handing a data crystal to Leader Dex. The mood in the chamber shifted instantly. Outpost 7 guarded the furthest edge of Council space, a first line of defense against whatever might exist beyond the mapped galaxy. Dex inserted the crystal into his console. A holographic display appeared, showing a Vis officer whose uniform was torn and stained. The background showed flashing emergency lights and smoke. "This is Commander Lim of Outpost 7. The recording began. Static cut through the message, breaking it into fragments. "We are under attack by unknown vessels. They appeared from nowhere. Technology unlike anything. Incredible weapons." More static. "The old stories were true. They're real." The hum. The transmission cut out completely. Silence filled the chamber. Then everyone began speaking at once. "Silence," Leader Dex shouted, raising all 4 arms. The chamber quieted immediately. "This is clearly a pirate attack. The commander is confused from the stress of battle." "But what did he mean by the old stories?" asked Delegate Murr. "Could he have meant?" "Nonsense," Dex snapped. "Pirates often use psychological tactics. They'd probably hacked our communication systems and learned about Professor Trom's research. It's a scare tactic, nothing more." Trom stepped forward. "Leader Dex, we should investigate, if there's even a slight chance. The defense fleet will handle this matter," Dex said firmly. "We've dealt with pirates before. This council meeting is adjourned until further notice." As the delegates filed out, Trom remained in place, staring at the frozen image of the panicked commander. Something about the genuine fear in those eyes troubled him deeply. He downloaded a copy of the transmission to his personal data pad before anyone could stop him. 3 days later, Trom sat alone in his small office, surrounded by ancient texts and artifacts. The walls were lined with shelves containing fragments of pottery, metal, and strange synthetic materials that some claimed originated from human habitations. Most scholars dismissed them as forgeries or misidentified alien artifacts, but Trom wasn't so sure. He played the transmission from Outpost 7 for the 100th time. Focusing on the background details, something caught his attention, a reflection in a metal panel behind Commander Lim. He enhanced the image, trying to clarify what he was seeing. A shape, bipedal, wearing some kind of fitted protective gear, holding what could only be a weapon. The door chimed, interrupting his concentration. "Enter," he called, quickly closing the file. His assistant Plex stepped in, antennae twitching nervously. "Professor, have you heard? The Defense Fleet lost contact with the emergency response team sent to Outpost 7. Trom's inner eyelids flickered, a sign of distress in his species. "How many ships?" 3 cruisers, fully crewed. Over 200 personnel. Plex hesitated. "There's something else." Before contact was lost, they reported finding Outpost 7 completely intact but abandoned. No signs of battle damage, no bodies, nothing. Just empty. Trom felt a chill run through his body. And the Council's response. "They're sending a larger fleet, but it won't arrive for several days. Leader Dex still insists it's pirates, but..." Plex's voice dropped to a whisper. "There are rumors, Professor. Strange signals appearing and disappearing across the entire border region. Some say multiple outposts have gone silent." Trom turned back to his screen and pulled up an ancient star chart, one that supposedly marked the direction humans had fled centuries ago. He overlaid it with the current map showing the affected border regions. They aligned perfectly. "Plex," he said quietly, "I need you to get me transport to the border." "Unofficial transport." "Professor, that's incredibly dangerous. The Council has restricted all civilian travel to that sector." "I know." Trom stood up, gathering his datapad and a small case of research materials. "But if I'm right about what's happening, the Council needs to know the truth before they blunder into something they don't understand." Plex hesitated, then nodded. "I know someone with a fast ship who owes me a favor. But Professor, what exactly do you think is happening?" Trom looked at the ancient human artifact on his desk, a simple metal disc with strange markings that some scholars believed was a military identification tag. The name Thomas was still barely visible on its worn surface. "I think," he said slowly, "that the myths have returned." At the very edge of charted space, a sleek vessel hung in the darkness, its black hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. Inside, figures moved with purpose, their forms unmistakably bipedal, their voices low and determined as they spoke a language not heard in this part of the galaxy for centuries. On the bridge, Captain Reed studied the holographic display showing the movements of the alien defense fleet. His face, weathered by years of service, remained expressionless as he received the latest report. "All observation posts are in position, sir," said his first officer. "The aliens still have no idea we're here." Reed nodded. "And they won't until we're ready." 500 years we've waited, Lieutenant. 500 years of rebuilding, of preparing. We can wait a little longer. The Council still thinks we're myths," the lieutenant said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good," Reed replied. "Let them think that, right up until our warships roar into their skies." Captain Reed stood at the viewport of the human warship Defiance, watching the stars. His weathered face reflected in the reinforced glass, lines etched by years of command and the weight of humanity's burden. The bridge hummed with quiet activity as crew members monitored their stations. "Captain," called Lieutenant Pike from the communications array, "we've intercepted more transmissions from the Alien Council. They're sending a larger fleet to investigate the missing outposts." Reed nodded, his gray eyes never leaving the stars. Time estimate: 4 days, sir. Good. That gives us time. Reed turned to face his crew. 20 men and women occupied the bridge, each focused on their tasks. They represented the best of what remained of humanity, disciplined, determined, and driven by a shared purpose that stretched across generations. Status report on the alien outpost, Reed asked. Officer Gale, a young woman with short brown hair, responded immediately. All alien personnel have been safely contained in the observation chambers, sir. No casualties on either side. The professor, the alien called Trom, continues asking to speak with our leaders. And the data core. Download at 80%, Captain. Their historical records are extensive. Reed allowed himself a small smile. 500 years of searching, and we finally have answers within our grasp. He moved to the central command table, where a holographic display showed the position of the 7 cloaked human vessels strategically positioned throughout alien space. The Defiance was merely the tip of the spear, a scout ship sent ahead of the main human fleet that waited at the edge of the system, hidden from alien sensors. Prepare my shuttle, Reed ordered. I want to meet this professor who studies human myths. Professor Trom paced in his containment room, which the strange bipeds had provided for him after capturing his small research vessel. The room was comfortable enough. The gravity, atmosphere, and temperature adjusted to his species' needs, but it was unmistakably a cell. The door slid open, and Trom turned quickly. A tall bike entered, removing the helmet to reveal a face that sent a shock of recognition through the professor's system. The being looked exactly like the ancient drawings in his research materials. 2 eyes, a nose-like protrusion, a mouth with flat teeth, and skin in a pale brownish tone. The creature wore a dark uniform with strange symbols on the shoulders. "You're human," Trom said, his translation device converting his clicks and whistles into sounds the bite could understand. The human nodded. "Captain John Reed of the Earth Alliance ship Defiance. And you are Professor Trom of the Vis species, a historian specializing in what you call human myths." Trom's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. "Then you are real. All the stories, all the ancient texts, they were true." "Most myths contain elements of truth," Reed said, taking a seat at the small table in the center of the room. He gestured for Trom to join him. "We've been watching your Galactic Council for some time, gathering information, assessing intentions. By abducting outpost personnel?" Trom asked, reluctantly sitting across from the human. "We needed to understand your technology and communication systems without alerting the wider council. No one has been harmed. They will be returned once we've completed our mission." Trom studied the human with fascination and fear. "What mission?" Instead of answering directly, Reed activated a small device on his wrist. A holographic image appeared between them, a beautiful blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star. "This was Earth," Reed said, his voice taking on a deeper tone. "Our homeworld. Nearly 500 years ago, it was attacked without warning. 3 billion people died in the first day alone." The image changed to show massive explosions across the planet's surface, great clouds of debris rising into the atmosphere, oceans boiling. Trom felt sick watching the destruction. "Who would do such a thing?" he asked. "That's what we've spent 5 centuries trying to discover," Reed replied. "The attack came without warning or declaration. The few ships that escaped carried only fragments of sensor data, just enough to know that the attackers used technology similar to what we now see in use by your Galactic Council." Trom's antennae drooped in shock. The Council would never authorize such an atrocity. "Perhaps not the current Council," Reed conceded, "but someone with access to Council technology and resources carried out the attack, and they must have had a reason." The hologram changed again, showing human ships fleeing into deep space. The survivors, less than 1% of our population, fled beyond the reach of our attackers. We found uninhabited systems, built hidden outposts, and slowly rebuilt, each generation raised with one purpose: to grow strong enough to return, discover the truth, and ensure such a thing could never happen again. Trom's scientific mind was racing. 500 years. That would explain why the human stories stopped appearing in our historical records around that time. Reed nodded. While your council dismissed us as myths, we were watching, learning, preparing. Our technology advanced along different paths than yours. We developed better stealth systems, more efficient drives, weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. And now you've returned for revenge, Trom said quietly. The human's expression hardened. We've returned for justice and truth. There's a difference. A soft chime sounded from Reed's wrist device. He glanced at it, then stood. The data download from your outpost is complete. Come with me, Professor. I want to show you something. Trom followed Reed through corridors filled with humans going about their duties. They all stared at him with open curiosity, but none showed hostility. The ship was smaller than council vessels of similar purpose, but seemed more efficient in its design. They entered what appeared to be a command center. Large screens showed star maps, ship positions, and data streams. At the center stood a circular table with a holographic display. This is what we found in your outpost records, Reed said, activating the display. An image appeared. An official council document from 300 years ago. It described a classified military operation called Preventive Measure 7. Trom read with growing horror as the document detailed plans to eliminate a potential threat species before they could achieve interstellar travel. This can't be right, Trom whispered. The Council exists to promote peace and cooperation. Not all Council members share those values equally, Reed replied. Look at the authorization signature. Trom looked and felt his blood turn cold. The operation had been authorized by a high-ranking member of the Krell species, who still held significant power within the Council. The Krell, Reed continued, have dominated your Council for centuries. They present themselves as peaceful diplomats, but they eliminate any species they perceive as a potential rival. Humans were just one of many. If this is true, Trom said, why show me? Why not take this evidence directly to the Council? Would they believe us? Reed asked. Would they accept the word of a mythical species that suddenly appeared with accusations against one of their most respected members? Before Trom could answer, a human officer rushed in. Captain, the alien fleet has changed course. They're heading directly for us at maximum speed. They'll be here in hours, not days. Reed's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened. It seems someone has detected our presence sooner than expected. He turned to Trom. Now you have a choice, Professor. Your research shows you believe in searching for truth, no matter how uncomfortable. Will you help us present our evidence to the Council, or will you stand with those who would bury the truth? Trom looked at the document again, then at the human captain whose species had endured centuries of exile and rebuilding. I will help you, he decided, but I need to understand everything first. No more secrets. Reed nodded. We have a few hours before your fleet arrives. That should be enough time to show you what really happened to Earth. He gestured toward the door. And to show you what humans have become since then. As they left the command center, alarms began to sound throughout the ship. On the main screen, multiple signals appeared, more alien vessels approaching from various directions. It seems, Reed said grimly, that the myths are about to announce their return to the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so chaotic. Delegates shouted over each other, some demanding military action, others calling for peace negotiations. The emergency session had been ongoing for hours with no resolution in sight. Leader Dex pounded his control panel, the sound echoing through the vast chamber. Order. The Council will have order. Gradually, the noise subsided. Tex's forearms were tense with strain as he addressed the assembly. We face an unprecedented situation. The ships that attacked our outposts belong to a species many thought was merely legend. The humans have returned. A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Our initial fleet has established communication with one of their vessels, Dex continued. They claim they come seeking information, not war. They have requested this council hear evidence of an ancient crime committed against their species. Delegate Murr rose from his seat, his rocky skin glistening under the lights. And we're supposed to believe these invaders. They've disabled our outposts and kidnapped our people. All personnel have been returned unharmed, Dex replied. And the humans have agreed to a diplomatic meeting aboard our flagship. From the back of the chamber came a deep, rasping voice. This is most irregular, Leader Dex. All heads turned toward the speaker, a tall, thin being with gray-green scales and vertical pupils. Ambassador Rix of the Krell moved forward slowly, his ceremonial robes dragging across the floor. The humans are clearly hostile, Rix continued. They entered our space without permission, disabled our defenses, and now make demands. We should meet this aggression with appropriate force. Before Dex could respond, the chamber doors opened. Professor Trom entered, flanked by 2 council security officers, and behind him walked a human. Captain Reed moved with confident strides, his uniform clean and formal, his face set in a neutral expression. The chamber fell completely silent as the human approached the central platform. Some delegates rose from their seats to get a better view. Others shrank back in fear. The council recognizes Professor Trom of the VIS, Dex announced, his voice tightly controlled. And his guest. Trom stepped forward. Esteemed council, I present Captain John Reed of the Earth Alliance. He comes with evidence that must be heard. Reed surveyed the chamber, noting the various species, some familiar from historical records, others unknown to human scientists. His gaze lingered briefly on Ambassador Rix of the Krell before he addressed the assembly. 500 years ago, Reed began, his voice strong and clear. The planet Earth was attacked without warning or provocation. 3 billion humans died within hours. The survivors fled beyond your known space to rebuild, and eventually to seek justice. Ambassador Rix moved forward. A tragic tale, if true. But what has this to do with the Galactic Council? We have no record of such an attack. Reed activated a small device on his wrist. The chamber's central display system came to life, showing the document that Trom had seen aboard the Defiance, Preventive Measure 7. This operation was authorized by the Krell leadership 300 years ago, Reed stated. It details plans to eliminate potential threat species before they achieve interstellar capabilities. Ambassador Rix hissed softly. That document is clearly a forgery. The Krell have always been champions of peace. Trom stepped forward. The document was found in our own archives. Ambassador, I verified its authenticity myself using standard historical methods. And you expect us to believe this creature? Rix gestured dismissively at Reed. A representative of a species that has invaded our space and now makes wild accusations. Reed remained calm. We have more evidence. The display changed to show sensor logs from the day of Earth's destruction. Though the images were fragmented, they clearly showed ships with designs similar to current Krell vessels firing upon the planet. These recordings were salvaged from our defense systems, Reed explained. For centuries, we believed the entire council was responsible. Now we know it was primarily the work of the Krell, acting without full council authorization. The chamber erupted again. Many delegates turned to stare at Ambassador Rix, whose scales had darkened with what might have been anger or fear. Leader Dex raised all 4 arms for silence. These are serious allegations that require investigation. Ambassador Rix, how do you respond? Rix drew himself up to his full height. I respond that this is an obvious ploy. These humans fabricate evidence to divide the council and weaken our resolve. He turned to face the assembly. Consider the timing. They appear now, when the Krell are negotiating resource treaties with many of your worlds. They wish to sabotage our diplomatic efforts with these lies. They are not lies, came a new voice from the entrance. All heads turned to see a human woman enter the chamber. She wore a formal uniform similar to Reed's but with more decorations. Her white hair was pulled back tightly, and her face showed both age and authority. "Commander Anna Stone of the Earth Alliance flagship, Vengeance," she announced, "and I bring proof that cannot be denied." Stone walked to the central platform as whispers filled the chamber. She nodded briefly to Reed before addressing the council. "While Captain Reed engaged with your initial fleet, our other ships located and accessed the Krell military archives. She activated her own device, linking to the display system. What you are about to see was recorded by the Krell themselves." The display showed a Krell military command center from centuries ago. A younger version of the current Krell High Commander was speaking. "The humans advance too quickly. Their adaptability and aggression make them unique among species we have encountered. If allowed to reach the stars, they will eventually challenge Krell dominance. Preventive Measure 7 is not merely authorized. It is necessary for our continued supremacy." Ambassador Rix lunged toward the display controls. "This is outrageous, fabricated propaganda." Council security officers moved to restrain him, but not before he activated a hidden device in his robes. Throughout the chamber, small communication units carried by various delegates began to emit a high-pitched signal. Commander Stone reacted instantly. "Captain, it's a trigger signal." Reed grabbed Trom and pulled him down just as the first explosion rocked the chamber. Smoke filled the air as delegates scattered in panic. "All council security to the chamber." Leader Dex shouted into his communicator, "We are under attack." Through the chaos, Rick slipped away toward a side exit. Reed spotted him and gave chase, drawing a compact weapon from his uniform. "Stone to all units," the commander spoke into her wrist device. "The Krell have initiated hostile action. Defensive positions only. I repeat, defensive positions only." Outside the council building, the sky darkened as massive ships appeared, dropping their stealth fields. Human warships, dormant for centuries, but never forgotten, moved into defensive positions around the council planet. In orbit, Krell vessels that had been hidden among the regular fleet suddenly changed course, weapons powering up. But before they could fire, the human ships moved with surprising speed, positioning themselves between the Krell and the planet below. Back in the chamber, Trom helped injured delegates evacuate, while Commander Stone coordinated with council security. Through the large viewing windows, he could see the human ships in the sky, not attacking, but forming a protective barrier. "They're defending us," Trom said to no one in particular. "The myths didn't come for revenge. They came for justice." As the chamber emptied, Leader Dex approached Commander Stone, two of his arms injured, but his voice steady. "Your ships could have attacked at any time. Why protect us now?" Stone's gaze was steel. "Humans don't punish the innocent for the crimes of the guilty. The Krell deceived you just as they tried to destroy us." She looked up at the sky where the battle was beginning. "Today, the galaxy learns that humans are no myth, and that we stand for justice, not vengeance." In a distant corridor, Reed cornered Ambassador Rix. The Krell diplomat turned, his scales fully darkened, eyes narrowed to slits. "You should have stayed a myth, human," Rix hissed. "Now you've forced our hand." Reed aimed his weapon steadily. "No, after 500 years, you finally forced ours." The emergency council bunker buzzed with tense activity. Located deep beneath the main council building, it was designed to protect delegates during planetary attacks. Now it served as both refuge and command center as the battle raged in orbit above. Trom watched the tactical displays with a mixture of awe and horror. The human ships moved with incredible coordination, forming defensive screens around council civilian stations while engaging the Krell warships that had revealed themselves. 23 Krell warships hidden within our own defense fleet, Leader Dex said, his voice hollow. "How did we not know?" Beside him, Commander Stone studied the displays with the calm of a veteran strategist. "The Krell have been manipulating your sensor systems for centuries. Our scans detected their energy signatures despite their disguises." The main door slid open, and Captain Reed entered with Council security officers. His uniform was torn at the shoulder, and a dark bruise was forming on his jaw. "Ambassador Ricks?" Stone asked. "Escaped through a personal transport tube," Reed replied grimly. "But we captured 3 of his aides. They've confirmed our suspicions. The Krell have agents embedded throughout the Council." A communications officer approached Leader Dex. "Sir, we're receiving requests from 17 member species. They all want to know the same thing. Are humans real? And are we at war with them?" Dex looked at Commander Stone, then at Trom. "Professor, you've spent more time with the humans than anyone. What is your assessment?" Trom stepped forward, aware that his words would help shape the Council's response. "The humans have demonstrated remarkable restraint. They could have attacked us at any time over the past weeks while infiltrating our space. Instead, they sought evidence and attempted diplomatic contact." He gestured toward the tactical displays. "Even now, they protect our civilian installations rather than targeting them." Leader Dex considered this, then turned to Commander Stone. "What do the humans want from us?" "Alliance against the Krell," Stone answered without hesitation, "and acknowledgement of the crime committed against Earth. This goes beyond one attack, no matter how terrible," Reed added. "Our intelligence suggests the Krell have eliminated at least 6 other species before they could reach interstellar capability. They see any species with potential as a threat to their dominance." Dex looked troubled. "These accusations require evidence." "Evidence we have in abundance," Stone said. "The files we recovered from the Krell military archive detail each extinction operation." Before Dex could respond, the tactical display flashed red. A communications officer called out, "Multiple new contacts." Massive energy signatures appearing at the edge of the system. The display showed dozens of new ships materializing from what appeared to be fold space. Their design matched the Krell vessels, but they were larger and bristling with weapons. "The Krell home fleet," Reed said quietly. "They must have been waiting for Ricks's signal." Stone's expression hardened. "All Earth ships. This is Commander Stone. Form defensive pattern Omega. Protect Council installations at all costs." She turned to Dex. "Your people need to evacuate all orbital stations immediately." Dex gave the orders, then faced the humans again. "Even your ships cannot stand against such numbers." A small smile touched Stone's lips. "We're not alone either." As if on cue, the display lit up with new signals as more human ships dropped their stealth fields throughout the system. Not just warships, but massive carriers and support vessels. The true might of the Earth Alliance that had been hiding in wait. At the center of this new formation appeared a vessel that dwarfed all others. Nearly 2 kilometers in length, its black hull absorbed surrounding light, making it look like a void shaped into a weapon of war. "The Vengeance," Stone said with unmistakable pride. "Our flagship, built over 3 generations in the darkness beyond her space." Trom stared at the display. "All this time, you had such power." "Power we hoped never to use," Reed replied. "We came for justice, not conquest." The bunker shook as explosions reached the planet's surface. The Krell fleet had begun bombarding defensive installations, caring little for civilian casualties. "They're targeting population centers," a council officer reported, horror in her voice. Stone turned to Dex. "Leader, we need a decision. Will the Council stand with us against the Krell?" Dex looked around at the representatives of various species who had made it to the bunker. Many nodded their support. "We will stand with humanity," Dex declared. "The Krell have betrayed the founding principles of this Council." Stone nodded sharply, then activated her communicator. "All Earth vessels, this is Commander Stone. The Council has formally allied with humanity. Implement Sunburst Protocol." On the display, the human ships began to move in perfect synchronization. Smaller vessels formed protective screens, while the larger ships positioned themselves strategically around the system. The Vengeance moved toward the heart of the Krell formation. "What is Sunburst Protocol?" Trom asked. "Something we developed during 5 centuries of preparation," Reed explained. The Krell rely on coordinated tactics and central command. We're about to disrupt both. On the screen, the Vengeance released thousands of small objects that accelerated toward the Krell fleet. Drone swarms, Stone said, each one carrying specialized electronic warfare packages designed to penetrate Krell systems. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the Krell formation, ships began to drift out of position. Some fired weapons at random, hitting their own vessels. Others went dark completely. How is this possible? Dex asked, astonished. Their technology should be protected against such attacks. We studied every piece of Krell technology we could find for 500 years, Reed said. We know their systems better than they know themselves. A new alarm sounded. A communications officer looked up in shock. Leader Dex, we're receiving a direct transmission from the Krell High Command vessel. The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. A Krell male, older than Rick's, with scales so dark they were almost black. His eyes held none of the diplomatic smoothness of the ambassador. This was a warrior who had never expected to be seen by outsiders. I am High Commander Vex of the Krell Dominion, the figure announced. To the leadership of the so-called Earth Alliance, you have interfered in matters beyond your understanding. Commander Stone stepped forward. We understand perfectly, High Commander. We understand that you ordered the extinction of humanity 5 centuries ago. We understand that you've manipulated the Council for your own purposes, and we understand that your time of deception has ended. Vex's vertical pupils narrowed. You think because you've disabled a few ships that you've won. The Krell have ruled this sector for millennia. We eliminated threats before they arose. Your species was deemed too dangerous to allow into the galactic community. Dangerous to your control, perhaps, Stone replied calmly. Not to peace. Look at you now, Vex hissed, appearing without warning, armed for war. You prove our assessment correct. Reed joined Stone before the screen. We armed ourselves because of what you did to us. We became what we needed to be to survive. The question now is what happens next. Vex seemed to consider this. Perhaps we misjudge. Perhaps there is a place for humans in the galaxy. Under Krell guidance, of course. Call off your attack, withdraw your ships, and we can discuss terms. Stone's expression didn't change. While you move your reserve fleet into position. Our long-range sensors detected them the moment they began moving toward this system. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Vex's face. You see, High Commander, Stone continued, while we've been talking, our drones have been working. Your ship's command protocols now answer to us. Your weapons are offline. Your engines will respond only to our signals. Impossible, Vex snarled. 500 years, Reed said quietly. 500 years of planning, preparing, learning. Did you think we would come back unprepared? The transmission cut abruptly as Vex realized the humans were not bluffing. On the tactical display, the Krell ships were now completely still, their weapons dark. All Krell vessels have been neutralized, a human officer reported. Minimal casualties on both sides. Leader Dex looked at Stone with new respect. You could have destroyed them all. That's not who we are, Stone replied. 5 centuries hasn't changed our fundamental belief in justice over vengeance. She turned to the tactical display. Now comes the hard part, building a peace that lasts. As if to punctuate her words, the Vengeance moved into position above the Council planet, not as a threat, but as a shield against any who would harm the world below. The myths had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 week after the battle, the Grand Council chamber had been repaired enough to host what many were calling the most important gathering in galactic history. Representatives from all Council species filled the seats, with many more watching remotely from their homeworlds. At the center of the chamber stood a new table, one with places for both the traditional Council members and the humans who had changed everything. Professor Trong found himself seated in a position of honor beside Leader Dex. Across from them sat Commander Stone and Captain Reed, their uniforms exchanged for formal diplomatic attire. The chamber buzzed with excited conversation until Dex raised all four arms for silence. "This special session of the Galactic Council is now in session," Dex announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "Today, we address the most significant revelation in our shared history: the return of humanity and the crimes of the Krell leadership." At the mention of the Krell, all eyes turned to the section where their representatives traditionally sat. Instead of Ambassador Rix, a younger Krell female occupied the seat. She wore simple robes without the traditional ornamentation of Krell officials. "The Krell delegation will be led by Acting Representative Nix," Dex explained. "Following the arrest of High Commander Vex and Ambassador Rix, the Krell people have established an interim government, which has pledged full cooperation with our investigation." Representative Nix stood and bowed deeply to the assembly. "The Krell people did not know of our leadership's crimes. We ask for the opportunity to make amends and rebuild trust." Many in the chamber seemed skeptical, but Leader Dex acknowledged her statement with a respectful nod. "Our first order of business," Dex continued, "is to formally recognize the Earth Alliance as a sovereign power and full member of the Galactic Council." The motion passed with overwhelming support. Commander Stone accepted the formal declaration with dignity. "Humanity thanks you," she said, her voice strong and clear. 500 years ago, we fled into the darkness believing the entire galaxy wished us destroyed. Today, we understand that the crime against Earth was the act of a corrupt few, not the will of the many. Captain Reed stepped forward. "With the Council's permission, we would like to present our evidence regarding the Krell leadership's crimes, not just against humanity, but against multiple species over the past 1,000 years." The evidence was damning and comprehensive. The humans displayed records recovered from the Krell military archives, documenting 6 complete extinctions of emerging intelligent species and intervention in dozens more to stunt their technological development. The Krell leadership had systematically eliminated any species they deemed potential competitors, all while presenting themselves to the Council as peaceful diplomats. When the evidence presentation concluded, Representative Nix addressed the chamber again. "As the acting representative of the Krell, I cannot deny these horrible truths. Our leaders betrayed not only the Council but their own people. Most Krell had no knowledge of these crimes." Her voice shook, but she continued, "We accept whatever justice the Council deems appropriate." A solemn mood filled the chamber. Leader Dex turned to Commander Stone. "The humans have suffered the greatest harm. What justice do you seek?" Stone exchanged glances with Reed before answering. "We do not seek the punishment of an entire species for the crimes of its leaders. The responsible individuals should face trial. Beyond that, we propose a program of reparations, not just to humanity, but to the worlds of the species that were completely destroyed." Reed added, "The Krell should also open their territory to scientific and cultural exchange. Isolation bred their fear of other species. Integration into the galactic community is the best safeguard against such crimes happening again." Representative Nix bowed deeply. "The Krell accept these terms with gratitude for your mercy." Trom watched the proceedings with academic fascination. In a matter of days, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. The myth humans had not only returned, but were reshaping galactic politics with remarkable restraint. The session continued with discussions of practical matters: establishing human diplomatic outposts, integrating Earth Alliance ships with Council defense forces, and creating cultural exchange programs. Throughout it all, Trom noted how the humans consistently pushed for cooperation rather than dominance. During a recess, Trom approached Captain Reed, who stood looking out at the planet's twin moons through a large window. "Your people continue to surprise us," Trom said. "You have the military might to demand anything you wish, yet you seek partnership instead." Reed smiled slightly. "Revenge is easy, Professor. Building something that lasts, that's the real challenge." "Will your people resettle Earth?" Trom asked. A shadow passed over Reed's face. "Eventually. The bombardment left much of our homeworld uninhabitable. It will take generations of restoration work before humans can walk freely there again." My research team would be honored to assist, Trom offered. Many council scientists would volunteer their expertise. Reed's expression softened. 500 years ago, we fled believing we were alone in a hostile universe. Now we find we have more allies than we ever imagined. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call over the council's communication system. All delegates returned to the chamber immediately. Emergency transmission from the Krell homeworld. When everyone had reassembled, Leader Dex activated the main screen. An older Krell male appeared, his scales bearing the distinctive patterns of a high-ranking scientist. Council members, humans, I am Dr. Zach of the Krell Historical Institute. During our internal investigation, we discovered sealed archives beneath our central command facility. The contents, he hesitated. The contents explain why our leaders feared humans so greatly. The chamber grew utterly silent. According to these ancient records, the Krell encountered humans once before, over 10,000 years ago. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Commander Stone stepped forward. That's impossible. Human civilization was primitive 10,000 years ago. We had no space travel capability. Not on Earth, Dr. Zach confirmed. The records speak of a human colony world in what you now call the Arcturus system. According to our ancestors' accounts, humans had an interstellar civilization that rivaled our own. Reed looked stunned. But there's no archaeological evidence of such advanced technology in our past. The records indicate a catastrophic war, Dr. Zach continued. The ancient Krell feared the humans' rapid advancement and adaptability. They launched a preemptive strike that destroyed the human colonies. The few survivors apparently fled back to Earth, losing their technology in the process. Trom's mind raced with the implications, a forced return to primitivism. That would explain the mysterious gaps in Earth's historical record that my research uncovered. Our ancestors believed they had ended the human threat forever, Dr. Zach said. When Earth began showing signs of technological advancement, again millennia later, our leaders feared history repeating itself. They saw your species return to the stars as the rebirth of an ancient enemy. The chamber remained silent as everyone processed this revelation. Finally, Commander Stone spoke. If these records are authentic, they change our understanding of human history. But they do not change our path forward. She looked around the chamber. Perhaps our ancestors were enemies, but we need not be. The cycle of fear and preemptive violence ends today. Reed nodded in agreement. We came seeking justice for Earth. We found something more valuable, the truth about our past and the opportunity to build a different future. Leader Dex turned to address the entire assembly. Let this day be remembered not just as when humans returned to the galactic stage, but when all our peoples chose a new path forward, together. As the session concluded, Trom watched humans and aliens gathering in small groups, talking animatedly about the future. Outside the great windows of the council chamber, human and alien ships patrolled together in the darkening sky. The myths had become reality. The legends had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The alarms wouldn't stop ringing throughout Colony Station Delta. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor, casting moving shadows that made the situation feel even more chaotic. Captain James Walker ran his fingers through his gray hair as he watched another group of civilians rushing toward the escape pods. His blue uniform was covered in dust from the latest explosion that had rocked the station's outer ring. "Sir, the last civilian transport is ready to launch," said Tom, his second in command. The younger officer's face was streaked with sweat and grime, but his voice remained steady. "That's 95% of the colony population evacuated." Walker nodded, his eyes fixed on the massive display screen that covered the bridge's main wall. 23 alien ships surrounded the station. They were huge things, shaped like dark metal diamonds, each one bigger than 3 Earth battleships put together. Their weapons had torn through the station's best shields like they were made of paper. "Status report on the remaining defenders," Walker asked, though he already knew the answer wouldn't be good. "We have 48 crew members still on board, mostly engineers and security personnel. Half of our defense turrets are destroyed. Main power is at 30% and dropping. Tom checked his tablet again. The good news is that the distress signal is still broadcasting. Someone has to hear it eventually. Walker walked to the weapons control station, where Lisa, their weapons officer, was trying to make their few working guns count. She had figured out that the maintenance drones could be used to confuse the alien ship's targeting systems. Right now, hundreds of small repair robots were flying around the station in carefully planned patterns, making it harder for the aliens to get clean shots at important areas. Those drones won't fool them forever, Lisa said without looking up from her screen. But I've got another idea. The cargo launching system in Bay 3 still works. We can load it with scrap metal and use it like a giant shotgun. Walker smiled despite the situation. This was why humanity had made it so far in space. They never stopped thinking of new ways to solve problems. Do it. Use whatever you need. Tom, get some engineers to help her. The next hour was a blur of activity. The remaining crew turned everything they could find into a weapon. They filled cargo containers with metal scraps and shot them at the alien ships. They reprogrammed cleaning robots to spray coolant at enemy sensors. They even used the station's communication arrays to blast noise at frequencies that seemed to interfere with alien targeting systems. None of it would win the battle, but that wasn't the point. They just needed to buy time for the escaped ships to get far enough away. A massive explosion shook the entire station. Walker grabbed onto a railing to keep his balance. Report. They'd broken through Section 7. Someone shouted. The whole cargo area is exposed to space. Walker looked at the tactical display. The alien ships had changed their pattern. Instead of surrounding the station, they were now grouping together on one side. He had seen enough battles to know what that meant. They're done playing around, he said quietly. They're getting ready for a final attack. Tom appeared at his side. Sir, maybe we should think about evacuating the remaining crew. We've done what we can. Walker shook his head. If we all leave now, they'll ignore us and go straight after the civilian ships. We need to keep their attention here as long as possible. He turned to address everyone on the bridge. Listen up. Anyone who wants to take the last escape pods, do it now. No one will think less of you. Nobody moved. Lisa actually snorted. With respect, Captain, we've all seen what these aliens do to colonies they capture. I'd rather go down fighting. Same here, Tom said. Several others nodded. Walker felt a surge of pride. These people could have left with the civilians, but they chose to stay. They knew the odds were impossible, but they stood their ground anyway. All right then, he said, straightening his uniform. Let's show these aliens how expensive it is to take a human station. The next wave of attacks was brutal. The alien ships fired strange energy weapons that seemed to ignore what was left of their shields. Whole sections of the station began breaking apart, but the crew fought back with everything they had. Lisa's cargo launcher idea worked better than anyone expected. The containers of scrap metal didn't do much damage to the alien ships, but they created clouds of debris that forced the enemies to adjust their positions. Every time they moved, the crew would target that area with everything they had. Defense turrets, communication beams, even focused solar reflectors. Their ships might be stronger, Walker said as he watched another cargo container explode into a shower of metal fragments, but they fight like they've never faced someone who fought back. They keep making the same mistakes. He was right. The aliens had better technology, but their tactics were simple. They didn't adapt quickly to new threats. When the crew started using maintenance drones to block their sensors, the aliens just fired wildly at every drone they saw, wasting energy and time. Look at that, Tom said, pointing at one of the alien ships. They're so focused on shooting down our drones that they don't notice we're herding them into a crossfire. The station's remaining weapons might have been weak compared to alien technology, but when 3 defense turrets caught one of the smaller enemy ships in a crossfire, they finally did some real damage. The alien vessel's surface cracked. letting out a stream of strange green light. The small victory didn't last long. Two larger alien ships moved forward, their weapons charging up with a visible purple glow. Walker knew this was it, the final attack. "They're targeting our main reactor," Lisa reported. Her voice was calm, even though everyone knew what that meant. Impact in 30 seconds. Walker looked around the bridge at his crew. They were scared, but none of them had run. None of them had given up. They had stayed to protect others, to buy time with their lives. If humanity was going to face these aliens across the galaxy, at least these invaders would remember this day. They would remember that humans didn't just roll over and die. "It's been an honor," Walker said to his crew. "Because of us, thousands of people got away. Whatever happens next, remember that." The purple glow from the alien weapons got brighter. Walker thought about all the distress calls they had sent out. He hoped someone would find their records, learn from this battle, and make sure these aliens paid for every human life they took. The bridge shook as the first purple beam hit the station. Warning sirens blared as more systems started to fail. But through all the noise and chaos, someone shouted something that made everyone freeze. "New contact." Something just appeared at the edge of our sensor range. Walker rushed to the sensor station. "Alien reinforcements." "No, sir," the sensor operator said, eyes wide with surprise. It's one of ours. A human ship. But the design. I've never seen anything like it." Walker looked at the grainy sensor image of the approaching ship. It was definitely human-made. He recognized the basic shape of Earth's warships. But something about it was different. Strange energy readings surrounded it, unlike anything their sensors had ever recorded. "Can we contact them?" he asked. "No, sir. Our communications are dead. But they're moving fast. Very fast. They'll be here in..." The sensor operator never finished his sentence. The entire bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the strange human ship appeared seemingly out of nowhere, right in the middle of the alien fleet. What happened next would change the course of human history forever. The experimental warship Nemesis drifted silently in the darkness of space, its sleek black hull absorbing what little starlight reached this remote region. Inside the ship's main bridge, Captain Emily Reed stared at the same error message that had been flashing on her screen for what felt like hours. The ship's quantum drive, humanity's newest and most advanced piece of technology, had failed during its first real test. "Engineering team reports no change, Captain," said Mike from his communication station. The young officer's voice carried the same frustration everyone felt. "They say the drive is operating perfectly. It's just not operating normally." Reed walked to the large window at the front of the bridge, watching the strange patterns of light that danced around their ship. The quantum drive malfunction had trapped them in some kind of bubble, where time itself seemed to move differently. The ship's clocks said they had been stuck for only 6 hours, but something felt wrong about that. "Show me the long-range scans again," Reed ordered, turning back to face her crew. The main screen lit up with a map of nearby space, showing their position relative to known stations and colonies. Everything looked normal, except for one blinking dot. "That's odd," said David, the ship's science officer. He adjusted his glasses as he studied the readings. "We're picking up a distress signal from Colony Station Delta, but it's not where it should be. According to these readings, it's 3 weeks ahead of its normal orbit." Reed felt her stomach tighten. 3 weeks? Check that again." "Already did, twice," David replied, his fingers dancing over his control panel. "Either their station is somehow in the wrong place, or..." He paused, looking uncomfortable. "Or we are," Reed finished. "We're not just trapped in a bubble. We're trapped in time." The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this information. The Nemesis was Earth's first ship equipped with a quantum drive, designed to move through space in ways that normal engines couldn't. But during its maiden voyage, something had gone wrong. Now they were discovering just how wrong. A loud beeping from the computer broke the silence. "Captain," called the ship's AI system. Its voice calm, and clear. I've completed my analysis of the quantum drive's behavior. You may want to see this. Reed walked to the central command station, where a holographic display appeared. Complex equations and diagrams floated in the air, showing the quantum drive's operations. In simple terms, the AI continued. The drive didn't malfunction. It evolved. The temporal bubble we're trapped in has given the quantum computers time to perfect the very problem that trapped us here. What we thought was a flaw has become something else entirely. Reed looked at the diagrams, trying to understand. Something else. What exactly? A weapon, the AI said. The drive is now capable of manipulating time itself, not just around our ship, but around anything we target. We can create localized fields where time moves faster or slower. We can even create temporal echoes, making events that haven't happened yet affect things in the present. Mike whistled from his station. You're saying we accidentally invented time weapons? Correct. And based on the distress signal we're receiving, we may need them very soon. Reed pressed a button, and the distress call from Delta Station played through the bridge speakers. As she listened to the desperate message describing an alien attack, her expression hardened. The timestamp on the message was 3 weeks old. We're too late, she said quietly. The station has been under attack for weeks while we've been stuck here. She turned to face her crew. But we're not helpless anymore. David, what's the status of the quantum drive now? David checked his readings. The AI is right. It's completely stable. Different from before, but stable. We can jump to the station's location whenever you give the order. Reed nodded. Mike, get me ship-wide communication. When he gave her the signal, she addressed the entire crew. This is your captain speaking. By now, you've all realized something went wrong with our first jump, but sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from mistakes. Our ship has gained an ability that no one, human or alien, has ever had before. And right now, there are people who need our help. She paused, looking at the distress signal's coordinates. We may be 3 weeks late, but we're going to make those weeks count. Engineering teams, work with the AI to understand everything you can about our new capabilities. Combat teams, run simulations with the temporal weapons. We have exactly one chance to get this right. The next few hours were intense. The crew worked with their AI to understand their ship's new powers. They learned that they could make parts of their ship experience time differently, shooting weapons that seemed to fire in slow motion to them, but struck with impossible speed from an enemy's perspective. They could create fields where incoming fire would age thousands of years in seconds, turning solid metal into dust before it could hit them. Most importantly, they learned that their quantum computers could now run combat simulations across multiple timelines at once. They could learn from battles that hadn't happened yet, using that knowledge to fight in the present. It's ready, the AI announced finally. The drive can take us to Delta Station whenever you give the command. But you should know, the temporal calculations suggest we'll arrive just as the alien fleet is preparing their final assault. Reed straightened in her captain's chair. Perfect timing, then. She looked around at her crew, seeing determination in every face. They had spent what felt like hours trapped in this bubble, but those hours had given them something invaluable, a weapon that could change the course of history. All hands, battle stations, she ordered. Quantum drive, prepare for jump. Let's show these aliens why you don't attack human colonies. The Nemesis's engines hummed to life, but this time there was something different about the sound. It wasn't just the roar of powerful machines. There was an echo to it, as if the sound was coming from multiple points in time at once. As the ship prepared to jump, Reed thought about all the people on Delta Station who had been fighting and dying while her ship was trapped. They would have watched their distress calls go unanswered, never knowing that help was coming. They would have faced impossible odds, fighting with whatever they had, buying time with their lives. We may be late, she said quietly, but we're going to make it count. The quantum drive activated, and space itself seemed to bend around the Nemesis. In the last moment before they jumped, Reed saw the temporal bubble that had trapped them finally burst. But it didn't disappear. It collapsed into the ship itself, becoming part of its new nature. They were no longer just a warship. They were something new, something that could fight across time itself. And they were about to teach their unknown enemy a lesson about underestimating humanity. "Jump," Reed commanded, and the Nemesis leaped into history. The Nemesis appeared in a flash of blue light, right at the edge of Delta Station's sensor range. From the bridge, Captain Reed could see the alien fleet clustered around the damaged station. Their dark ships looked like hungry predators closing in for the kill. The station itself was barely recognizable. Whole sections were torn open to space, and debris floated everywhere. "They haven't noticed us yet," Mike reported from his station. "Their sensors just marked us as a small human ship. They probably think we're another rescue attempt." Reed nodded. The aliens' overconfidence would be their downfall. Status of the quantum drive. "Ready," the AI responded. "Temporal combat systems are online. The computers have already started running battle simulations across multiple timelines." Through the main window, Reed watched as the alien ships charged their weapons for what they thought would be their final attack on the station. Purple energy gathered at the front of their vessels, building up to deadly levels. They were so focused on their target that they completely ignored the single human ship approaching from behind. "All hands," Reed said over the ship-wide communication system. "This is what we trained for. Time itself is our weapon now. Let's show them what humanity can do." The Nemesis quantum drive hummed to life, but this time it wasn't preparing for a jump. Instead, it created a web of temporal fields around the alien fleet. To anyone watching from outside, nothing seemed to happen at first. But inside those fields, impossible things were about to occur. "Target the first 3 ships on the left," Reed ordered. "Let's see how they handle fighting across multiple timelines at once." The Nemesis fired its main guns. The energy beams looked normal at first, but as they entered the temporal fields, they split into dozens of copies. Each copy was the same shot from a different possible timeline, all happening at once. The alien shift shields suddenly had to deal with attacks from multiple realities simultaneously. The results were devastating. The first alien shift shields flickered and died as they tried to block weapons fire that was technically coming from several different moments in time. The second ship attempted to dodge, but the temporal field around it meant that its evasive action happened both too slowly and too quickly at the same time. It ended up flying directly into one of its own energy weapons from 2 seconds in the future. "Their weapons are having trouble targeting us," David reported excitedly. "Every time they try to lock on, we're already where we're going to be, not where we are." Reed watched as the alien fleet broke formation, finally realizing the threat behind them was real. But their confusion only made things worse for them. In the temporal fields, their panic from the future was affecting their actions in the present. Ships turned too early to avoid collisions that hadn't happened yet, while others fired at spaces where the Nemesis would have been if it had followed normal physics. "They're trying to coordinate their attacks," Mike called out, "but their communications are being scrambled by the temporal interference. Each ship is receiving messages from different points in time." The Nemesis moved through the chaos like a dancer, its quantum computers predicting exactly where it needed to be. When alien weapons fire did manage to reach them, the temporal fields aged the energy beams thousands of years in seconds, turning them into harmless light before they could strike the hull. Inside the alien ships, things were even more confusing. Their crews were experiencing time at different rates. On one ship, the captain gave an order that his crew heard 5 seconds before he said it. On another, gunners found themselves firing at after images of the Nemesis, while their targeting computers showed them where the ship would be 10 seconds from now. "Look at their formation," Reed said, pointing at the main screen. "They're not just confused, they're starting to fight themselves." She was right. The alien fleet had broken into chaos. Some ships were firing at empty space, hitting targets that only existed in potential futures. Others were responding to threats from timelines that the Nemesis computers had already eliminated. Two large alien vessels collided with each other while both tried to dodge attacks that hadn't been fired yet. The station's remaining crew watched in amazement as the seemingly invincible alien fleet fell apart. Through the Nemesis' temporal fields, they could see ghost-like images of ships overlapping with themselves, each image showing the same ship from a different point in its timeline. Message from the station, Mike announced. They're asking what's happening. Should I respond? Reed smiled. Tell them help arrived a little late, but we brought something special to make up for it. The Nemesis continued its dance through the alien fleet, each movement calculated across dozens of possible timelines. When alien ships tried to jump away to safety, they found their engines affected by temporal distortions. Some disappeared into space-time rifts, only to reappear seconds later as clouds of ancient dust. Quantum computers have identified their command ship, the AI reported. It's the large vessel in the center of their formation. Calculating temporal attack pattern now. Reed leaned forward in her chair. Show them what happens when they threaten human colonies. Full temporal assault on their command ship. The Nemesis weapons fired again, but this time the temporal effects were concentrated on a single target. The alien command ship found itself trapped in a bubble where time moved differently in each section of the vessel. Its front experienced time normally while its engines lived through years and seconds. The middle of the ship tried to exist in 3 different moments simultaneously. The alien vessel's hull couldn't handle the strain of existing across multiple time streams. It broke apart in a spectacular display, each piece aging at a different rate. Some sections crumbled to dust, while others seemed to reverse their own destruction, only to break apart again in new ways. The remaining alien ships are retreating, David reported. Or at least, they're trying to. Their engines aren't working properly in the temporal fields. Reed watched as the alien fleet fell into complete disarray. Ships that had seemed so powerful and unstoppable just minutes ago were now easy targets, unable to coordinate or even move properly through the distorted time around them. Signal from Delta Station, Mike said. Captain Walker is asking permission to come aboard. He says he needs to see with his own eyes what just happened. Permission granted, Reed replied. Tell him we have a lot to explain about why we were late. As the last alien ships were dealt with, Reed looked at the destruction around them. The Nemesis had turned a hopeless last stand into a victory, not through superior firepower or better shields, but by changing the very rules of combat. They had arrived 3 weeks late to save the station, but those 3 weeks trapped in the temporal bubble had given them exactly what they needed to win. Send word to Earth, she ordered. Tell them that humanity just changed the rules of space warfare forever. And let them know that these aliens just learned a very important lesson about attacking human colonies. The Nemesis hung in space among the scattered remains of the alien fleet, its temporal fields slowly fading. In just 15 minutes, it had done what an entire defense fleet couldn't do in 3 weeks. It had arrived too late to prevent the attack on Delta Station, but it had arrived just in time to show the galaxy why humanity should never be underestimated. Captain Walker stepped onto the Nemesis's bridge with wide eyes, still trying to process what he had just witnessed through Delta Station's viewing windows. The ship looked normal enough from the inside. Clean white walls, standard control stations, crew members in regular uniforms. But he had just watched it tear apart an alien fleet using weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics themselves. Welcome aboard, Captain Walker, Reed said, stepping forward to shake his hand. I apologize for our late arrival. Walker laughed, a sound of both relief and disbelief. Late? You just destroyed 23 alien warships in 15 minutes. I don't think anyone's going to complain about your timing. The bridge crew smiled at that, but their expressions quickly turned serious as alerts started flashing across their screens. David adjusted his glasses as he studied the readings. Captain Reed, we're picking up some unusual temporal effects in the debris field. The quantum drive's effects aren't completely gone. Reed moved to his station, watching as the scattered remains of the alien fleet continued to shift and change. Some pieces of wreckage seemed to age years in seconds, while others appeared to move backward and forward through time in small jumps. The space around Delta Station had become a dangerous mess of temporal distortions. The temporal fields are collapsing unpredictably, the AI announced. Each piece of debris trapped in the fields is creating its own small-time distortions. If we don't contain this soon, it could create a cascade effect. Walker watched as a chunk of alien hull metal floated past the bridge window. It seemed to rust and decay, then suddenly reversed back to its original state, only to decay again in a different pattern. What exactly are we looking at here? Time wounds, Reed explained, her voice grave. We torn holes in the fabric of space-time to defeat the alien fleet. Now those holes are starting to affect everything around them. She turned to her crew. Options. Mike spoke up from his station. The quantum computers are suggesting we could use the drive to create a containment field, basically wrap all the temporal distortions in one big bubble until they stabilize. And how long would that take? Walker asked. That's the problem, the AI responded. Our calculations show it could take anywhere from 6 hours to 6 years, depending on how the time distortions interact with each other. And from outside the bubble, we won't know which it is until it's done. Reed stared at the main screen, watching the patterns of temporal energy spreading through space. If they didn't act soon, the time distortions could spread to Delta Station, or even reach the evacuation ships. But containing them meant risking another temporal trap like the one that had delayed them for 3 weeks. We don't have a choice, she finally said. We can't let these temporal effects spread. Prepare the quantum drive for containment procedures. The Nemesis moved carefully through the debris field, its sensors mapping the spread of temporal distortions. Each piece of wreckage had become a tiny time storm, aging and de-aging in random patterns. Some fragments would disappear completely, only to reappear seconds later, as if they had never been destroyed. Look at that, David said, pointing to a particularly large piece of alien hull. The metal was cycling through what looked like hundreds of years of wear and repair in seconds. Their technology is interacting with the temporal fields in ways we didn't expect. It's like their materials are trying to adapt to the time changes. Walker stepped closer to the screen. Could they have had their own temporal technology? Something that's only showing up now because of what your weapons did to their ships. Before anyone could answer, a massive energy spike lit up all their sensors. One of the larger alien ship fragments had suddenly stopped its temporal cycling. Instead of continuing to shift through time, it had frozen in what looked like a perfect moment of its existence, neither destroyed nor whole, but somewhere in between. That's not possible, Mike said, checking and rechecking his readings. That piece just stepped outside of time completely. It's not aging forward or backward anymore. It's just existing in all possible states at once. The frozen fragment began to pulse with a strange purple energy, similar to but different from the weapons the alien ships had used. Other pieces of debris started reacting to it, their own temporal fluctuations slowing down and synchronizing with the pulse. The alien technology is adapting, the AI announced, its voice showing unusual concern. It's learning from exposure to our temporal weapons. If this continues, the debris could form a new kind of temporal anomaly, one we don't understand and can't control. Reed didn't hesitate. Begin containment procedures now. We can't let their technology have time to adapt further. The Nemesis quantum drive hummed to life once again, but this time, it wasn't creating weapons. Instead, it began weaving a massive temporal field around the entire debris field. The ship moved in a careful pattern, laying down layer after layer of temporal energy like a net. Containment field at 20%, David reported. The synchronized debris is trying to resist, but our field is holding. Walker watched in fascination as the quantum field became visible to the naked eye, a shimmering barrier of blue energy that bent light in strange ways. Inside the growing bubble, the alien debris continued its impossible dance through time, but now those effects were being contained and controlled. 40%, Mike called out. But power consumption is increasing. The drive is having to work harder to maintain the field. Reed gripped the arms of her captain's chair. Divert power from all non-essential systems. We finish this now, before that alien technology figures out something else new. The Nemesis's lights dimmed as power was redirected to the quantum drive. The containment field grew stronger, its blue energy becoming more solid and defined. But the alien debris wasn't giving up without a fight. The synchronized pieces began to pulse faster, their purple energy fighting against the containment field's blue glow. 60%, David announced. But the temporal readings from inside the field are off the charts. Time itself is being twisted into knots in there. Walker stepped up beside Reed's chair. Your ship did this in the first place. Can't you just turn it off? Stop the temporal effects completely. Reed shook her head. It's not that simple anymore. When our weapons hit their technology, something changed. They learned from us, adapted to temporal manipulation. Now we have to make sure that knowledge stays contained. The battle between blue and purple energies continued as the containment field reached 80% completion. The alien debris made one final attempt to break free, all the synchronized pieces pulsing together in a blinding flash of purple light. For a moment, it seemed like the containment field might break. Full power to the quantum drive. Reed ordered. Close this field now. The Nemesis's engines screamed as they pushed their power output beyond safe limits. The containment field flared bright blue, finally overwhelming the purple energy of the alien technology. With a silent flash, the field closed completely, trapping the debris in a perfect temporal bubble. Containment field stable, the AI reported. All temporal anomalies are secured. The bridge crew let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. Through the windows, they could see the containment field floating in space like a giant soap bubble. Inside, the alien debris was still shifting through time, but now those effects were safely contained. How long will it hold? Walker asked quietly. Reed looked at the readings from the quantum computers. The field is self-sustaining now. It should hold until the temporal effects naturally stabilize, however long that takes. She turned to face him. But we learned something important here. These aliens aren't as simple as we thought. Their technology can adapt, can learn from exposure to new weapons. We won one battle today, but I have a feeling the war just got more complicated. Walker nodded, his expression grim. They had saved Delta Station and won an impossible victory, but they had also discovered that their enemy was more dangerous than anyone had imagined. As he looked at the containment field holding the remains of the alien fleet, he couldn't help but wonder what other surprises these invaders might have waiting for them. 1 week after the battle at Delta Station, ships from across human space gathered to witness something unprecedented. The Nemesis led a fleet of research vessels in studying the temporal containment field, which still held the twisted remains of the alien fleet. Scientists worked day and night to understand both the quantum drive's effects and the strange ways the alien technology had adapted to them. Captain Reed watched from the Nemesis's bridge as another research ship arrived, its hull marked with Earth's top scientific organization's logos. The ship's quantum drive hummed quietly, no longer just an experimental system, but now humanity's newest and most powerful weapon. 6 more colonies have reported alien ships retreating from their space, Mike announced from his station. Word of what happened here is spreading fast. Even the ones that got away are running scared. Reed nodded, but her expression remained serious. The main screen showed a map of known space, with red markers indicating suspected alien activity. The markers were all moving away from human settlements, but they were moving together, gathering somewhere in the unknown regions of space. They're not just running, she said quietly. They're regrouping, learning. The pieces of their ships in our containment field prove they can adapt to temporal attacks. We have to assume they're already working on countermeasures. Captain Walker entered the bridge, looking much better than he had a week ago. The station's repairs were proceeding quickly, and most of the evacuated civilians had returned home. Earth Command sent new intel, he said, holding up a datapad. We managed to decode more of that alien storage device we found. You need to see this." The bridge crew gathered around as Walker displayed the decoded alien data. Strange symbols and diagrams filled the screen, slowly translating into human language. The AI's voice spoke up as it analyzed the information. "This is more than just attack plans," it said. "These aliens were testing us. Each attack on our colonies was designed to learn more about human technology and responses. Delta Station wasn't just a target, it was an experiment." David adjusted his glasses as he studied the data. "Look at these readings from their ships. The temporal shielding we detected wasn't an accident. They were looking for something specific, something they thought humans might develop. Time weapons." Reed finished. "They knew it was possible. They were waiting to see who would create them first." She turned to Walker. "Your station's resistance gave us the time we needed, but it also showed them exactly what they were looking for." A new alert flashed across their screens. One of the research ships studying the containment field had detected something strange. Inside the bubble of twisted time, the alien debris had stopped its random shifting. Instead, all the pieces were pulsing in perfect synchronization. "Energy readings are off the charts," Mike reported. "The field is holding, but the debris, it's like all the pieces are sharing information, learning from each other's exposure to the temporal effects." Reed moved to the main window, watching as the containment field flickered with new patterns of light. The alien technology inside was changing, evolving, becoming something new. "They're not just adapting to survive temporal attacks," she realized. "They're learning to use them." The decoded alien data continued to stream across their screens, revealing more about their mysterious enemies. These weren't just random raiders attacking human colonies. They were an ancient race that had been searching for the key to time manipulation for centuries. Human ingenuity had finally unlocked it, but in doing so, had shown them exactly what they needed to see. "Multiple contacts detected," Mike suddenly called out. "Long-range sensors are picking up ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Lots of ships." The main screen shifted to show the sensor readings. A massive fleet of alien vessels was appearing at the edge of the system. But these ships looked different from the ones they had fought before. Their hulls pulsed with familiar purple energy, but now that energy moved in patterns similar to the Nemesis's quantum field. "They're not here to attack," Reed said, understanding flooding her face. "This is a first contact fleet. Now that we've proven we can manipulate time, they're ready to talk." The alien fleet held position at a respectful distance, neither advancing nor retreating. After a few minutes, a transmission reached the Nemesis. The AI translated it in real time. "To the humans who mastered time, you have accomplished in weeks what we sought for centuries. The great experiment is complete. Now we must decide if we will share this power or fight for control of it." Walker looked at Reed. "Share it? They nearly destroyed my station. They attacked our colonies." "Because they needed to push us," Reed replied, finally understanding the bigger picture. "They needed humanity to face impossible odds, to be trapped in a situation where we had no choice but to try something that should have been impossible." She smiled grimly. "And we did exactly what they hoped we would. We turned a failure into the greatest breakthrough in the history of space travel." The containment field pulsed brighter, drawing everyone's attention. The alien debris inside had completely synchronized now, forming patterns that matched both their quantum drive's energy signature and the new alien fleet's hull emissions. They weren't just learning to resist temporal effects, they were learning to work with them, combine them with their own technology. "They're offering an alliance," the AI said, analyzing the transmission. "Their weapons, our quantum drive. They want to explore time itself, not just use it for war." Reed stood at the center of her bridge, feeling the weight of the moment. What had started as a desperate battle for survival had become something much bigger. The Nemesis had arrived too late to prevent the attack on Delta Station, but that delay had given humanity exactly what it needed to change the future. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them, Tell them that being late to this party might have been the best thing that ever happened to humanity. We didn't just win a battle. We passed a test that aliens had been preparing for centuries. The Nemesis's quantum drive hummed as it maintained the containment field, its energy now matching the pulses of both the debris inside and the alien fleet outside. They had created temporal weapons by accident, turned a malfunction into a miracle, and now stood at the brink of an alliance that could reshape the galaxy. Should we answer their transmission? Mike asked. Reed nodded. Tell them humanity accepts their challenge. If they want to explore time itself, they'll find we're very good at turning impossible dreams into reality. The stars seemed to shine brighter as the message was sent, as if the universe itself was watching this moment. The Nemesis had arrived 3 weeks late for a rescue mission, but right on time for humanity's next great adventure. Sometimes, Reed thought, being late was just the universe's way of making sure you arrived exactly when you needed to.